Hi guys, welcome back. So last week we ended our meeting talking about introducing some students that we were wanting to adjust some of our expectations or norms or processes that we were struggling with. And we had some time to sort of give some thought to what we wanted to do, what kind of suggestions we were looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and ask us to introduce our students. Casey, did you want to go ahead and go first?
You remember Alex and Rachel from my ninth grade math class. Being online is struggling, but both of them have two distinct problems. Alex is always using the time to goof off, play on his phone, but I'm wondering, what would you guys do in this situation?
Okay.
Wow.
Well, so the first thing I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask us to kind of focus on what exactly is the problem that we're solving. So let's take these students one at a time. With Alex, what is the problem that we're trying to address?
Well, the problem is that he's completely unengaged and disrespectful, not only to me, but to other students. He's always got his phone up. He's always kind of like this, with his phone, and that may make other students feel uncomfortable as well. So that is the problem with him.
Okay. And what are you looking for? Like, how are you going to know when this problem has resolved itself or been solved?
Well, I'd like to see him more engaged in class, responding to questions. Even unsolicited requests for response would be ideal. Phone being stored away, it's kind of obvious being online. If I'm always looking down here, you can pretty much have a good idea that they're not paying attention. So, or if if the phone's up here, I know you're not paying attention. So.
Okay. And then just really quick to recap, in the spirit of not getting advice that you've already heard 1,000 times, what have you tried that hasn't worked?
Well, I've tried to call his attention in class, asking him to put the phone away, and usually he complies. But within about 5 seconds, he's back doing the same thing. And it's just this continuous repetition that never gets resolved.
Okay. Cool. All right. Maya, do you have any immediate thoughts for him?
I'm just thinking, like, have you tried to involve their parents in a way that maybe have a guidance that when the lesson is happening and there's someone next to them to make sure that they are participating in class and they're not being disruptive?
That's a good idea. When I spoke with the psychologist, that was one of the things that she had mentioned, possibly setting up a meeting with the parents, discussing this, or at least having a phone call so they're aware of how their son is working in class.
I'm also thinking if it's possible to like practice like regular rules in the classroom, like no phones allowed, and then after that to ask students if they can show you just not everywhere but just around the circle to see if there's no phones and other distractions around them, and then start with the class just to ensure that nobody has anything around them except for the laptop or computer that they're using for the lesson.
Sure, that's a good idea.
So we can try that.
Mm-hmm. Another suggestion that I would have is if it's an environment where you don't really feel comfortable necessarily saying like no phones, or if for instance, there's going to be too much pushback and that's not something that you feel like you can do at this point, because like it's we're halfway through the year. There's a norm. There have been things that were okay that just you can't suddenly come in and be like, okay, it's not okay anymore without losing some face. So like if you find that you're in that boat, maybe do you have any consequences in place? Like, is there a natural consequence or some kind of like, so what that goes along with your, hey, I need you to put your phone away? Is there anything like that you already have in place? And is it being implemented consistently? Well, you need something.
Being online, it's kind of difficult to implement any of those consequences outside of trying to set up maybe a detention outside of the classroom. Because in the classroom, when you're at home, they're in their own area. It's not like I can control much of what they're doing. And so that was why the psychologist spoke, and she gave me some feedback on his home life. It's not particularly, let's just say, functional. There's some dysfunction there, and that may be why he's disengaged in class.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. Well, that's actually some really good insight to have then. Maybe the problem won't be so much in the area of like controlling his phone use as much as maybe you might want to redirect some of your attentions towards, you know, connecting with him and seeing if you can engage him, because, you know, this would also affect how you would be able to approach the parents potentially.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you have some ideas that you can then implement?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to speak with with his parents, see what's going on, maybe get an idea of what his home life is like, and
Yeah.
move forward from there. This, I think, is a quick and actionable plan I can implement this week, and maybe have some results to bring to our meeting next week.
Perfect. I love it. Okay, we're going to move on. Maya, you want to give us the rundown?
Right. So I've been having a very stressful week. As I've mentioned previously, that I have this one kid that does not understand the importance of food. He just starts playing snowball fights, pumpkin fights in the middle of nowhere when everyone is having lunch. It can get messy, very disruptive, and it's just unnecessary chaos. I'm really not sure what to do at this moment, because I've tried to sit him down and make him understand that, look, there's other kids in other countries that would die to have this kind of meal that you have. It doesn't seem that he understands that. And I've tried to also just reinforce emphasize rather, our classroom rules, things like no mess, try to stay in your seats. Like, I've just tried two remedies, and they're not really working. So I'm just hoping if you guys can come up with something that I can try differently, maybe a better strategy.
I think it's a good idea when you're dealing with a student who is kind of kinesthetically expressing, excuse me, expressing themselves, whether that means they're getting up in class or in the cafeteria, in your situation, throwing food. Not only is this completely disrespectful to the environment, but it can also be dangerous too. So I think the first thing you need to consider is removing him from that situation. I found that when I've dealt with some students like this, maybe having them sit with you during lunch, or even having them eat in a separate room where they're either alone or with a smaller group where they're less inclined to try to call attention to themselves, you might find that this behavior stops.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you can also let the student know that, you know, that you're removing them because of as a direct result of their behavior, and that one thing that you can do to turn it into a little bit of a positive in experience for them is to then outline like what you expect to see from them and for how long. So for instance, if you can eat quietly with me for the next 2 days, then you can earn the privilege to sit with your friends again, or something along those lines.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Oh, thank you guys. I think I'll try.
All right. So does everyone, so do we feel like we've got an idea? We know what the problem was that we're trying to solve. We have an idea about, you know, what you're looking for to know that it's being solved. You have some ideas of actionable things that you can implement over the next week that we can then meet next week and see how it went, right? Reflect, adjust if necessary, and like keep this ball rolling. Yes?
Yeah. I think I'm good.
Very good. What questions do you guys have? Any concerns that are left over?
I'm just a little bit worried about the isolation part of my student. Will that not make me seem like I'm isolating him away from everyone? Or just for the fact that I am explaining it to him that the reason why I'm removing you is because of this kind of behavior, I'll put you, will that settle it down?
So it can be an extreme consequence. I appreciate that you're concerned about that, because we don't want to alienate the student either. What if you became his lunch buddy, and instead of taking him out of the lunch environment, you or maybe the lunch teacher, somebody can obnoxiously sit near them and become their lunch buddy for the day.
Another option too is that if you do need to remove him, or if you decide to stay with him, not only communicating the reasons why, but also communicating the times and, hey, we're going to try this for a week. And if I see that there's improvement, then we can consider integrating you back into the lunch environment. But if we don't see the improvement, then it's going to be long. That way they're completely aware of the constraints of their consequence of their action.
It's totally fair. Thank you guys so much.
Very good.
I need to try.
Perfect. I'm glad. Thank you guys for bringing your best to this meeting. As always, it's always a pleasure. I look
Sure.
forward to next week.
All right, see you next week.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.